Can you still feel the rough plaid flannel against your skin, hear the distant hum of a garage band on the radio, and catch that faint scent of thrift store discoveries? The 1990s grunge look was more than just a fashion statement. It was a declaration of independence, a quiet rebellion we wore on our sleeves, quite literally. All across America, baggy jeans, worn-out boots, and oversized flannels replaced the prim and polished outfits of previous decades as youth everywhere embraced an effortlessly cool, anti-establishment style. Grunge wasn't about perfection, it was about authenticity, about being true to yourself in a world that seemed increasingly artificial. You may remember layering t-shirts under holey sweaters or raiding your brother's closet for the perfect army jacket. Did any other trend ever capture the mood of an era so completely? Even now, the look conjures memories of muddy music festivals and that raw, honest energy pulsing through every crowd. So as we revisit these iconic styles, let's ask ourselves, what did our clothes really say about who we were then, and why do we still look back with such affection? Let's take ourselves back, way back, to the late 1980s. Before flannel shirts and combat boots were on every department store rack, the seeds of grunge style were quietly taking root in the misty streets of Seattle, Washington. Picture dimly lit basements, chilly garages, and tiny clubs where bands with names like Nirvana, Soundgarden, and Pearl Jam poured their hearts into music that was just as raw, moody, and honest as the Northwest rain. There was no grand design behind what they wore. For these musicians and their followers, clothes were worn for warmth, comfort, and sometimes out of necessity, not fashion. In those earliest days, layering was a matter of survival in the damp Pacific Northwest. Oversized flannel shirts, old thermal tops, and battered denim became the uniform, sourced not from fancy boutiques, but from thrift stores, army surplus shops, and bargain bins. There was something quietly radical in rejecting the neon, plastic, and perfectionism of the flashy 1980s. Grunge Clothes, at their core, said, "This is who I am, take it or leave it." But how did this practical and unassuming style leap from Seattle's grey underbelly to the covers of magazines and TV screens nationwide? What happened next would send shockwaves through both music and fashion in America. One surprising fact: many people forget that Seattle was considered so out of the way by the mainstream music industry. It had almost no national profile as a style capital before grunge erupted. Even the city's record labels were small and scrappy, with Sub-Pop Records operating out of a cramped office. The scruffiness of the local musicians, with their thrifted wardrobes and distinctly unfashionable air, wasn't born from image consultants or focus group studies. It genuinely reflected a community trying to stay warm and get by. As the new decade dawned, a wave of disillusionment washed over youth culture. The excesses of the 80s, think high hair, cocktail dresses, and expensive stonewashed jeans, suddenly felt empty and forced to many. Grunge arose as a sort of counterpoint. Less was more, comfort trumped glamour, and a certain world-weariness seeped into every detail. If you think back to your own experiences with fashion in those years, did you ever feel that craving for authenticity, that wish to step outside of trends that didn't represent you? Share that memory, because you weren't alone. This same yearning was brewing in young people across small towns and big cities alike. And then came 1991, a year that would redefine American pop culture. Nirvana released Nevermind, and suddenly all eyes were on Seattle. MTV was flooded with videos of musicians in torn jeans and lumberjack shirts, hair uncombed, and attitudes defiantly unpolished. Almost overnight, the scruffy parade of grunge became aspirational. Clothing manufacturers, always eager to seize the next big thing, paid close attention. Department store buyers who once dismissed flannel as men's workwear began scrambling to place orders, and within months, racks of oversized plaid shirts, thermal Henleys, and chunky boots lined shopping aisles from coast to coast. It might surprise you that in 1992, flannel shirt sales in the US nearly doubled, a trend that hadn't happened since the 1940s, when such shirts were standard for loggers and soldiers. But, as is often the case, what started in one place took on new life everywhere else. Youngsters in sprawling suburbs and sun-baked southern towns, nowhere near a rainy Seattle club, began mixing in their own local touches. Maybe you remember altering your look with a favorite chain wallet, or adding pins and patches from local bands to your old army surplus jacket. Each twist became its own unique tribute to the core grunge spirit, claiming, "This is mine." In truth, grunge style, for all its laid-back nonchalance, was endlessly adaptable, open to interpretation and reinvention. And did you know the very word grunge was initially a slang term for dirt or mess? It was a kind of in-joke among music fans, a way of describing that scruffy, don't-care exterior. But grunge clothing spoke volumes. It quietly thumbed its nose at the idea that you had to look polished to be taken seriously. A curious twist, many early grunge fans deliberately distressed their new clothes to achieve that lived-in, rugged look. Some even ran brand new flannels through mud puddles or their washing machines a dozen times just to get them appropriately worn. Perhaps most remarkable was how the media, always eager for a new story, latched onto grunge style and spun it into a kind of movement. Suddenly, magazines like Rolling Stone and 17 ran photo spreads showing models in painstakingly curated, disheveled outfits. Did you ever see those polished pages and laugh, thinking, "That's not how we do it"? You wouldn't have been alone. Many real grunge fans felt the same way. There was always this tug-of-war between the anti-fashion roots of grunge and the popularity-driven push to package it for the masses. Despite this, the early evolution of grunge clothes left an indelible mark, not just on what we wore, but on how we thought about style and identity. For millions, it was a chance to reclaim fashion from the runways and return it to the everyday person. Do you remember combing through thrift store racks looking for that perfect flannel or pair of weathered jeans? Was there a particular song or band that you felt defined your own style? These memories are more than footnotes. They're the foundation of a movement that valued heart over gloss, comfort over conformity, and individuality over imitation. Now, having pulled back the curtain on where grunge fashion began, born in the damp corners of Seattle and carried across America by a spirit of rebellion and authenticity, you might be wondering, how did this look morph and evolve once it landed in the mainstream? What surprising twists did designers and retailers add to the grunge formula, and how did technology influence the story? Stay with us, because the next phase of the journey reveals some shockingly creative turns. As we look back on the era of grunge clothes in the 1990s, it's impossible not to feel a pulse of energy, a combination of rebellion, authenticity, and comfort that set the tone for an entire generation. We've retraced the roots of this unmistakable style from rainy Seattle neighborhoods where musicians layered flannel and denim out of necessity, all the way to the mainstream explosion that saw stores and runways across America clamoring for that rough-around-the-edges look. We remembered how those oversized shirts, battered boots, and lived-in jeans became the uniforms of young people wanting to stand apart and tell the world, "I am who I am." Whether you layered thermal shirts under thrifted sweaters or personalized your jacket with a band patch and a few safety pins, the spirit was the same. The clothes were honest, accessible, and rooted in the search for something real during an era of so much gloss. But beyond the specific pieces, grunge fashion meant freedom. It threw open the doors for us to embrace what felt good, what worked, and what told our stories. Suddenly, it didn't matter if your shirt was brand new or borrowed, or if your jeans had more than a few holes. What mattered was that it all felt true to who you were. This attitude crept into everyday life, quietly challenging the idea that everyone needed to follow the same rules to be accepted. Looking back, it's remarkable how the simple act of getting dressed in the morning could be an expression of belonging to a movement much bigger than yourself, one stitched together by raw music, shared struggles, late-night garage jam sessions, and the laid-back camaraderie of those unforgettable years. Even as time has passed, the echoes of grunge style continue to ripple through fashion. Every so often, you might still see someone in an oversized plaid shirt or worn denim and think, for just a moment, how those textures and colors evoke a different era. A flash of a basement concert, a chilly autumn afternoon, or that feeling of endless possibility that seemed to hang in the air back then. It reminds us that true style isn't about the price tag or the designer label, but about confidence, self-expression, and the memories woven into every thread. In a world that often encourages us to look forward, there's something deeply comforting about looking back and remembering the freedom and authenticity that defined grunge fashion. What's your most vivid memory from the age of grunge? Was it the hunt for that perfectly worn flannel in a musty thrift shop? Or the shared experience of attending your first small club show in boots that never quite dried out? Maybe it's the laughter with friends as you pieced together outfits that felt like a badge of honor. Take a moment and share your story in the comments. You never know whose memory might echo your own, and these shared recollections are part of what keeps the spirit of that era alive. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more nostalgic journeys. Don't forget to share this with a friend who lived through those grunge-filled years, or anyone who loves a good story about the threads that tie us all together. We have plenty more stories lined up, ready to help you rediscover the feeling of decades past. All you have to do is stay tuned. Grunge clothes were more than fabric and fashion trends. They were the soundtrack to our youth, the badge of our rebellion, and the comfortable reminder that sometimes the most ordinary pieces become extraordinary when worn with confidence and a bit of attitude. Even now, generations later, the spirit of those flannel-filled days lingers, always inviting us to layer up, turn up the volume, and remember the power of being unapologetically ourselves.